The Euthyphro dilemma raises one of the most important questions for the divine command theorist, and a very important question for any religious person. If you're religious and you believe that God exists, then one question you need to deal with is, what is God's relation to morality? Does God make things right or wrong? Or are actions right or wrong independently of God's attitudes toward them? Let's look at the Euthyphro dilemma. In Plato's dialogue, the Euthyphro, the character Euthyphro is basically putting forward a version of divine command theory. And then Plato asks this question: is an act right because God commands it, or does God command it because it is right? So you have two options here, and it's either one or the other. To make this a bit easier to understand, let's turn these questions into claims. The first one, is an act right because God commands it? That's another way of saying an act is right because God commands it. The second part of the dilemma asks, or does God command it because it is right? So we could say God commands it because it is right. These are two different claims. The divine command theorist can only accept one. So we need to figure out what these two claims are saying. And the difference between them turns on the placement of the because. This first claim, an act is right because God commands it, that's like saying God is the author of what's right or wrong. God determines what is right or wrong. God is, in a sense, the creator of what is right or wrong. Or another way of putting it, what's right or wrong depends on God and his commands or prohibitions. If this is what the first claim is making or saying, then this is what the divine command theorist is going to accept. An act is right because God commands it. God makes actions right or wrong. So when presented with the Euthyphro dilemma, is an act right because God commands it, or does God command it because it is right? The divine command theorist is going to say the first part, an act is right because God commands it. But this second claim here, what is its difference? Why is it different than this first claim? Most students have trouble seeing how these two claims are actually making different assertions. God commands it because it is right. That's another way of saying that actions are already right or wrong before God commands or forbids them. And he commands or forbids based on the fact that they're already right or already wrong. Another way of saying it, and this isn't entirely correct, but it helps get the idea across, God discovers what is right or wrong. What is right or wrong is independent of God. So he doesn't make actions right or wrong. So for the divine command theorist, imagine this scenario. God is creating the world, and God has yet to command or forbid anything. According to the divine command theorist, at that point, nothing is right or wrong. And then God says, I command promise-keeping. According to the divine command theorist, promise-keeping becomes right at that point. God makes it right to keep your promises. God says, I forbid lying. According to the divine command theorist, lying becomes wrong right then when God forbids it. It was neither right nor wrong until God forbade that action. If someone's not a divine command theorist, this is how they think of God's relation to morality. They think, okay, God's creating the universe, and then he's trying to figure out what to command or forbid. And being all-knowing, God realizes that promise-keeping is a good thing. So he commands promise-keeping. Promise-keeping was already good. God's commanding it didn't make it good. So divine command theorist endorses this first one. Those who disagree with divine command theory and who are religious endorse the second one.